This is Metaphorical Greg. Greg is a nice, pleasant man, and his colleagues like him. He gladly tells interesting stories and anecdotes. He likes history. He's an avid reader of historical books, and he enjoys examining historical processes. He wonders how it came about that this beautiful country, which lies along the banks of the Vistula River, has found itself in this and not some other situation. He loves Poland. He loves the people who live here, and he believes that Poles are in some way superior to other nations. For example, he considers that our sausage has long overtaken their sausage. He loves going to the Baltic Sea. He knows these resorts, the people look familiar. Greg once went abroad to Vienna, where as soon as he alighted from the bus, he began to inform the Austrians he met, who saved their backsides in 1683. Unfortunately, nobody understood him. Generally, Greg did not consider the trip a success. He didn't know the language, he was unable to communicate, and he felt like a stranger. The trip to Austria had one more unpleasant consequence. In Greg, a feeling of being undervalued began to sprout. In time, he started to see more and more clearly that, except for the strict inner circle of his friends, it is increasingly difficult to interest someone with his historical anecdotes, and that he is even beginning to lose friends. And this is Greg the researcher. The question arises whether there are any similarities between Metaphorical Greg and Greg the researcher. As in the case of Metaphorical Greg, hasn't Greg the researcher become too entrenched in his field of research methodology, products, and analysis? Isn't it true that Greg the researcher also has problems with going outside his language conjoints, regression analysis, statistical error, and that he feels bad when he has to talk about brand strategy and business decisions? Finally, doesn't he also feel undervalued when he sees that important business decisions are made in quiet, marketing surroundings, without his participation and despite extensive knowledge regarding consumer study methods? Let's take a look at the conditions in which Greg operates today, and they are certainly not the best. Discussion about whether the crisis has arrived or is just approaching is pointless insofar that all the media have been trumpeting about it for some time now. And if they are trumpeting, then that's the way the customers are thinking. Therefore, we too. Proof of this can be found, for example, in the results of TNS's studies for the Eurobarometer, which indicate that the economic situation in a majority of European countries is considered as rather bad than good. Our Polish consumer sentiment indicator is also peaking downwards, and there is no indication that in the near future it will stop. As newspaper headlines loudly inform us, our fellow advertising business is also doing badly, although advertising via search engines is doing great. New communication channels are flourishing, and growth in the new technologies industry is supposed to be 14% per annum to 2015. How is our industry doing worldwide? An industry that, it would seem, has growth embedded in its identity. We grew since the first days of the free market in Poland, and each year was better than the last. However, according to Ofbor, in 2011, after taking inflation into account, the research business wheel spun and stopped entirely. It's interesting to know if it just stopped to regenerate and then it will move upwards in a new form, or is it that our heydays are over? Customers with whom we talked mentioned that a certain magic regarding market research has ended. Research companies are no longer monopolists in terms of providing marketing information, and the information which is derived from them is increasingly confronted with other sources. while study reports with appealing infographics can easily be found on the internet. The research world has started to undergo a dynamic change. Some people, like 1/4 of the experts in the Cambria report, even maintain that the top agency from 2020 today doesn't even exist. In this complicated and dynamically changing situation, Greg has to ask himself the question, how to live? We, on the other hand, ask ourselves if Greg has the potential to keep pace with the changing world and to become someone with whom it will be exceptionally useful to maintain contact, especially in hard times. Greg makes mistakes. Let's throw an eye on the 10 most common mistakes in marketing research. How often a research study is not properly utilized because business objectives have not been clearly defined? How often are studies incredibly interesting but useless? To add even more drama to the reading experience, keep in mind that the list was created in the mid-70s. Why is this happening? It's because Greg, as already mentioned above, speaks only the language of researchers. It's hard for him to break away from his own world of methodology, respondents, samples and conjoints and to understand other languages. That is why we propose Greg a short course in foreign languages. Let's start with the first language and call it language of the customer. Although it must be admitted that perhaps there is no person who knows the customer better than a market researcher, we have to realize that this language is becoming more and more real and dynamic. Several years ago, the beginning of the great internet era was heralded, that is, computers connected with each other. Today is the beginning of an era of the great network of linked customers. Customers who, as shown in one of TNS's mobile life research analysis, don't part with their mobile devices from dawn till dusk. Customers who, through contact with these devices, have also changed the language with which to communicate with each other and the world. They no longer speak using complex sentences, and they don't want to read texts line by line. Instead, they prefer to click and move their fingers on the touch screens. Due to democratization of access to technology, customers have also become more impatient. If they chose our airlines only 6 months ago because we offered in the airplanes a free hotspot, then today they are also liable to leave us quickly if the hotspot fails to work, even for a short time. Customers who are aware have undertaken an active dialogue with marketing departments of large companies, showing that in their dealings they are equally professional and sometimes more effective than marketers. After the Mexican Gulf crisis, millions of people looked at professional designs of modified BP brand logos, and when Adidas advertising banner covered the view of the famous graffiti on the Służewiec racetrack wall, a Facebook fan page was immediately set up, which attracted more fans than Adidas' official fan page. Aware and networked, customers sometimes are capable of arranging their world not only without the participation of companies and marketers, but even without any financial operations, as in couchsurfing, where in exchange for entering their own offer of free bedding, they receive access to thousands of similar offers from around the world. This way, they can spend their holiday without any contact with tour operators, hotels, or campsites. Commenting the current economic situation in Europe, in an interview he gave in Gazeta Wyborcza, Eduardo Mendoza said that it's terrible to stop buying and not be able to have more and more. Customers are also coping with their melting savings. Today, despite everything, they still continue to buy, but differently. We call that smart shopping. Maybe tomorrow they'll come up with something else. One thing is for sure. Nothing which concerns the customer is permanent or certain anymore. Hence the reason why we should improve our language of the consumer skills. The next language that Greg should master is language of competition. That is, our competitors' language in the field of providing marketing information. Even not so long ago, the research agencies' main competitors were other research agencies. Today, as indicated by TNS experts in dozens of countries, companies dealing with extracting data from the web, such as interactive agencies or innocent and friendly until recently giants like Google or Facebook, are considered serious competitors as well. Paying just 19 Polish zloty, the equivalent of a cheap lunch, you can now order something that goes by the name of Internet Image Analysis. All you need to do is to type in the keywords, press Enter, and then you receive a thorough infographic with bar charts, market maps, and statistical data on the brand you want to analyze. Hasn't our language been stolen from us? A quick study can be performed whilst traveling in a lift. The owner of this application states that in just a little more than 3 minutes, and with the help of our mobile, we are able to run the study and collect its results in real time. Google is also seriously entering the marketing information market. In the world of professional marketing, we still detect more drawbacks than advantages in this type of solution. But will this remain forever? There are also incidents where, thanks to technology, the customer receives his product completely without the involvement of the researcher and marketer. A prime example of this is the internet radio station, Last FM, which due to music analysis which we listen to on our mobile phone, computers and tablet devices, it recommends this particular type of music which we would like to listen to. However, technology is not everything. Our customers admit that in a fast-moving world, we are also competing with our neighbor, or CEO's teenage daughter, who finds in her, and not through his research department, inspiration and ideas which help him to run the business. Greg doesn't need to blindly apply all the new information access methods. However, he should decidedly be aware of their existence. The final language which we believe Greg should master is the language of our customers, or language of business. We suggest using Business Phrasebook, because what really matters in this particular case is for Greg to have closer contact with his customers. In our business, there is currently a great generational change. It is a slow process, but inevitable. The so-called Generation X, which largely created this business in Poland, and for whom sound knowledge and strong theoretical and methodological roots were of primary importance, is now meeting Generation Y more often. This generation consists of practitioners, people who value speed and effectiveness more and more, and who certainly fail to understand the concept of researcher ethos. The generational changes, as well as technological and macroeconomic, have resulted in customers not wanting to discuss trials, research techniques, methodologies, or even insights anymore. What customers value today is the feasibility of our work and its impact on the financial results of their company. Well, if we stubbornly stick to our research language, customers become angry. Sometimes even so angry as in the case where a frustrated customer created his profile on Twitter and threatens that he will cut 1% off our commission for each page without conclusions and recommendations, or reproaches us for abusing such words as conjoint or regression analysis. TNS's experts' assessment indicates that the strengths of traditional research agencies include methodologies, professionalism, trusted brands, global coverage and experience. The most that the research industry can afford today is to provide customers with insight, but this no longer excites them. They expect useful recommendations provided quickly and based on a broader knowledge rather than just results from a specific research project. What do our customers think of Greg? Does he have any basis on which he can build his future? Yes. He, like no one else, is able to process and not just gather data. He has experience in various categories of research and in cooperating with customers. Furthermore, he is curious about the world and likes to learn, more than people from other industries. Therefore, perhaps he will be able to learn languages more easily. Let's listen to some of the advice of our customers. Use your curiosity and questioning skills, not only with regards to the respondent, but also regarding the customer at the brief analysis stage. Don't end your knowledge within the boundaries of a single project. Let's use our experience from other projects and categories, and believe that we have the potential to provide strategic advisory services, as indicated by the General Manager of Heinz Polska.
To teraz takie terminy, na których się badacz powinien skupić, to real time, multi-screen, mobile, niecierpliwy konsument, biznes, który bardzo szybko potrzebuje informacji, zbyt duża liczba danych, z których trzeba wyciągnąć to, co jest tak naprawdę kluczowe. Jeżeli badacz mi w tym pomoże, to ma robotę.
We look at the changing world and have heated discussions. In one of the industry discussions on Facebook, in response to the question whether or not we should be afraid of the merger of Google with Harris Interactive, there was an interesting comment. Let the machines thrash the gravel, and we warm our intellect scroll. There is also the metaphor of the mushroom picker and the cook, indicating that the latter is not so much picking mushrooms, but uses them to prepare delicious dishes, taking care not to include any poisonous ones. Therefore, Greg is ready to go through, or is even going through, a certain metamorphosis. Greg the researcher becomes Greg the helpful, who understands the customer's business, and therefore he is able to provide useful recommendations. He has a grasp of the digital world and has a unique ability to eliminate the surplus of data rather than to multiply problems. Let's take a look at what the customer thinks is most important for Greg.
Najważniejsze jest, żeby myśleć o tym, czy badanie, które sprzedaje, czy usługa, doradztwo, które sprzedaje do biznesu, spowoduje, że ten biznes będzie rósł.
The most important point is whether the research we provide makes the customer's business grow. We at TNS, before commencing every research project, firstly consider our customers' company growth paths. Sometimes it might be about increasing buyer loyalty, sometimes about acquiring new buyers. Sometimes the growth path may be achieved by introducing new products and services, while at other times it might involve entering new markets, not necessarily in geographical terms. Having in mind the client's business objective, we design the right study and conduct the right analysis in order at the end to be able to provide precise instructions which will contribute to business growth. That's the way we do it at TNS. During the Congress, we announced the Researcher Dictionary competition and asked the contestants to tell us which undesirable and overused vocabulary should disappear from the Researcher's Dictionary and which words should be introduced. We received a total of 549 words, and the findings were remarkably consistent with the thesis presented in this material. Words such as respondent, target, methodology, and representation, or expressions like "it's impossible," should disappear from the dictionary. The magic word insight, which, as we have indicated before, too often ends the research agency's cooperation with the customer, has also ended its useful life. The number one word which should be introduced to the dictionary is recommendation. We should also think more often about brand strategy, the usefulness of our work, and make use of our know-how to advise customers how to achieve profit and growth in their business. Thank you very much for your participation in the Congress, and we wish you growth through precise and useful recommendations.
Growth. It's your ultimate goal. But in a world where customers have more choice, more information, and more influence, growth can be increasingly elusive. That is, until we get the measure of it. By having more conversations with more consumers than anyone else, uncovering the details that matter most, and defining the precise plan your business needs to expand and grow. By increasing loyalty and new spend, finding new customers, creating new products, and entering new markets. We call this precision growth, and we are TNS.